Hey, I'm Neil Dobby, and this is my review of Life or Death by DM Pictures. Okay, I thought it started off really well with that restricted bit, and I've never seen that particular one before, so I thought that was a cool way to start things off. And following that, I thought you had some good establishing shots using the church and then inside of the church. However, it did create a timing issue with editing since we see Eric Snipes walk into the church, and then there's all of these interior establishing shots within the sanctuary before we actually see him come into the sanctuary. So I thought you could have fixed that in the editing by either cutting most of the uh, shots inside of the sanctuary or by not showing him actually enter the church, just cut from those exterior establishing shots to the interior establishing shots before we actually saw him come and sit down in the pew. But following that, I thought that the conversation he had with the priest was some really, really good dialogue, especially the lines from the priest. I mean, it really seemed like those words were coming from someone who knew the Bible and knew how to apply it to life and how to give someone advice based on that. And I thought some of those, there should have been some clips used from that in the trailer because that really adds a lot of depth to the character and as well as to the whole story. The one problem I had about the dialogue between Snipes and the priest was that it just seemed like Snipes was a little too open in revealing information about what he does to the priest because after all they are in an open sanctuary, not in a confessional. Although I do respect the fact that you didn't shoot it in a confessional because that's been done so many times. And it wasn't necessarily a problem with the dialogue. It's just that it seemed like he should have been a little more guarded in revealing the fact that he kills people. And also I thought with the costume design, it didn't scream executioner to me immediately. I mean, I think something as simple as wearing a black leather jacket or something with a hood would have made it easier to immediately identify with him as an executioner. And I think the same goes for the people that he eventually teams up with. I mean, they had on, I think, white T-shirts when we first meet them, but they had on suits or something more mysterious that have been easier to accept their roles. And also Eric Snipes, it just kind of hit me that that might have been a Blade reference. So if it is, kudos for that. I thought the opening titles were really well done and some nice editing with that. I thought the score was really impressive and fitting throughout. One thing I noticed that in a lot of shots there seemed to be a lack of movement, and that could have been improved by using some focus switches from items in the foreground to items in the background, and uh, or using some dolly shots. And you don't need to have an actual dolly to get those moving shots. If you just have something like a wheelchair, you know, somebody who has a wheelchair, you can use that. And I think you'd be surprised at how good just using a wheelchair to get moving shots can work. And another thing that I think the film lacked throughout was close-up shots. And I mean that would take some of the pressure off of your actors and make it a little easier for them. And also it would just improve the look of the shots and help to bring the viewers in more. And there's a scene, I think, in the second part where some bad guys are trailing Snipes, and I think that should have been a little less obvious, or I don't know if you could have done it like on a crowded street or something like that, when it could have been just a little less assuming. That would have added to the suspense and tension there. And also, I think you could have used more over-the-shoulder shots. Um, it just makes it more believable that both actors, when they're dialoguing, if you can get both actors in the shot, it just makes it more believable that they're both actually there talking and engaging, and instead of just having single shots with one individual actor and cutting back and forth between the two. If you can get those shots with them both in there somehow, I think that would really uh, help to keep the momentum going, and by getting them both in there and make it more believable instead of having to cut back and forth each time. I thought you had some good cinematography in the shot where the guy who Snipes adds to the team, when he goes up to the door after hearing some knocking, and then he moves the curtain back, and Snipes is there at the door. I just thought that was a really good looking shot. There was a lot of contrast there, and it was a nice dramatic reveal for Snipes, and I think that could have been used in the trailer since, I mean, it was a really strong visual. There's a scene with the girl with the knife. I think that could have been more dramatic, and you could have done that by, I think there was a light on in the background and the bedroom behind. If that light could have been turned out, it would have been less distracting. And again, a close-up shot would have helped in that scene. And also more dramatic lighting if you could have used a dimmer light or like a red spotlight or something. That would have definitely made it more unsettling and a little more scary for that particular scene. And again, there was a particular scene where the characters were doing some storytelling. That's another time when close-up shots would definitely benefit the scene. And another good visual shot was the scene where one of the guys runs up behind a girl and grabs her by the mouth and takes, puts his hand over her mouth and picks her up and takes her away. That was a really good looking shot. Although I think that the fade transition in that scene kind of broke the tension there. I don't know, maybe a cut scene, or I mean cut transition, or holding that shot out longer would have held the intensity a little longer. And also there's a scene where multiple people are arguing. I felt like there was too many cuts in that scene, and again, a scene like that, if you could get all the actors that are engaging in one shot, or at least two in one shot, that would help to maintain the intensity. Doing some handheld shots for a scene like that would also increase the intensity. Closer up shots would also help to draw the viewers in for scenes like that. And it was mentioned in another video review that the fight scenes could have used better choreography, and I think that's part of it, but I think more importantly what they needed was some closer up shots, and also quicker cuts and quicker camera movements would also help to make it more believable and more intense watching those scenes. So I think that the area with the most room for improvement would be in lighting and cinematography. However, definitely an enjoyable film, and I think you have a lot of potential as a filmmaker.